Have you ever felt like your life was circling something you couldn't name? Like you were waking up inside the same story, even as the characters changed, even as you swore this time would be different. There's a quiet pattern that wraps itself around our lives, subtle, repeating, invisible to the eye but unmistakable to the soul. You feel it in the heaviness of beginnings that never become middles, in the hope that swells but never lands, in the quiet frustration of always almost arriving. And then one day, something pierces through the fog. A sentence, a voice, a warning. Do nothing after this, Thoth said, and everything will fall into place. It sounds like a paradox, but it might be the most honest invitation you've ever received. Because what if the cycle isn't breaking because you're not trying hard enough, but because you've been trying at all? What if the swirl you feel isn't life resisting you, but life asking you to pause, to stop feeding it the same frantic energy and finally step out of its rhythm? Imagine a whirlpool, quiet on the surface, yet pulling underneath. You wouldn't see the spin, but you'd feel the drag. This is where we begin. If you've ever felt stuck, tired, or just ready to stop the cycle you can't explain, this might be your turning point. Not because you finally found the answer, but because you're finally ready to stop searching and start listening. There's a strange ache that follows you, even on the days you try your hardest to be positive. It lingers between your routines and your goals like an echo that keeps whispering. Why is nothing changing? You've journaled your dreams, spoken your affirmations, maybe even burned sage and whispered to the stars. But deep down, if you're honest with yourself, there's a tightness in your chest, a subtle anxiety beneath the rituals. And no matter how beautiful the vision boards, something still feels stuck. That's not a failure. That's a frequency. See, what most people don't realize is that manifestation isn't powered by desire alone. It's powered by the emotional current behind it. And if the emotion under your desire is fear, if you're vibrating from lack, desperation, or urgency, then that's exactly what the universe responds to. It's like yelling, "I trust," while your energy says, "I'm terrified it won't work." The universe doesn't hear your words, it feels your vibration. It doesn't mirror what you want, it reflects what you are. So when your desire is drenched in the fear of not having it, it creates resistance. Not because you're not good enough, not because your dream is wrong, but because the signal you're sending is scrambled. And here's the thing no one tells you. Desperation doesn't mean you're more committed. It just means you're trying to control the timeline. Picture this: you're in a boat on a river, trying to reach the shore. But instead of flowing with the current, you're rowing frantically upstream, exhausting yourself, splashing wildly, panicking with every passing moment because the shore isn't getting closer. All the while, the river was already leading you, if only you had trusted it. This is the loop so many of us are caught in. Not because we're doing the wrong things, but because we're doing the right things from the wrong place. Thoth once taught that the inner world creates the outer. And if your inner world is pulsing with anxiety, if your mind keeps asking, "Why hasn't it happened yet?" you remain stuck in a cycle. A cycle not of events, but of energy. And energy repeats itself until it felt fully understood and finally released. So what if the answer isn't to want more, but to feel less attached? What if true creation isn't about shouting into the universe, but becoming so aligned that you no longer need to speak at all? You don't have to stop dreaming. But maybe, just maybe, it's time to stop chasing, to pause, to breathe, and to realize that your most magnetic state isn't desperation, it's peace. When you shift from "I need" to "I trust," the entire field around you begins to move. So if you're still here, still stuck, still looping through the same silent frustrations, the question isn't what more can you do? The real question is, what are you willing to stop doing? That's where the shift begins. You might think your words are powerful. That what you say, what you ask for, what you hope for is the main thing that shapes your reality. But in truth, it's not your words that lead. It's your energy. Everything around you, your relationships, your finances, your health, even the way strangers respond to you is reflecting something deeper. Not your vision board, not your goals, but the frequency you're carrying right now. It's a hard truth to swallow, but it's also liberating once you understand it. The universe doesn't react to what you want. It responds to what you are. If you've ever felt confused by why certain patterns keep repeating even when your intentions seem so pure, it's not because the universe is ignoring you. It's because it's obeying you. Not the words on your lips, but the vibration you send out with every breath, every sigh, every thought you pretend not to feel. And that vibration, it never lies. You can say, "I'm ready to receive." But if your body is tense, your mind restless, your heart filled with doubt, what you're actually vibrating is uncertainty. You can say, "I deserve love." But if you carry silent resentment or unworthiness, what you're sending out is conflict. Mixed signals confuse people. They don't confuse energy. So if reality feels stubborn, repetitive, off-track, pause. Don't try to fix the outside. Listen inside. Ask yourself gently, what am I really feeling throughout my day? What emotion am I swimming in, hour by hour? This isn't about judgment. It's about awareness. Because the moment you bring attention to your internal state, something remarkable begins to happen. The pattern becomes visible. And once seen clearly, it can finally shift. Most of us go days, even years, without checking in on our emotional frequency. We react, we adapt, we suppress, but rarely do we stop and observe. What signal am I radiating right now? You don't need to meditate for hours or master spiritual language to do this. You just need honesty, stillness, a moment of real connection with your inner self. Here's something simple you can try. The next time you're alone, place a hand on your heart, close your eyes, and without changing anything, just feel. Ask silently what's here. You might feel sadness or tension or even nothing at all, but that nothing is information too. Don't push it away. Let it speak. Because the truth is, your vibration has been speaking for you long before your voice ever tried. And when you begin to tune into it, really tune in, you'll notice your world starts to shift. Not because you forced it, but because you finally became a match for what you've been asking for all along. Everything you want is already listening. The only question is, what are you saying when you're not saying anything at all? There's a moment, subtle and easily missed, where everything that once felt stuck begins to shift right at the edge of stillness. Not when you try harder, not when you push through, but when you stop, intentionally, consciously. This may sound strange at first, like some spiritual riddle. How could not doing anything be the thing that finally changes everything? But Thoth wasn't speaking in riddles. He was pointing to something ancient, something known in almost every mystical tradition. That stillness is not the absence of power. It is power in its purest form. When you pause, fully and with awareness, you enter what he called conscious cessation. It's not collapse, not resignation. It's the opposite of defeat. It's the sacred moment where you choose to not interfere because you finally trust the unseen orchestration at play. Imagine a lake. Its surface ripples when you thrash about. You can't see what's underneath. You can't see the sky above. But when you become still, something extraordinary happens. The lake becomes a mirror. It reflects everything clearly. It reflects you clearly. That is what your life is waiting for. Not more effort, but clarity. Not more noise, but presence. Conscious cessation doesn't mean giving up your dreams. It doesn't mean ignoring your responsibilities or avoiding life. It means you stop injecting fear into the process. You stop forcing, grasping, correcting every perceived misstep. You stop believing that the outcome depends entirely on your control. And in that stillness, reality recalibrates. Because the truth is, your effort sometimes blocks the very thing you're trying to call in. Like pressing your hand against the surface of water, hoping to grab the reflection, only to find it keeps slipping away. But the reflection isn't meant to be grabbed, it's meant to be received. Silently. Still. So what does it look like to do nothing on purpose? It looks like stepping back from the mental storm. It looks like sitting with your breath for 5 minutes without trying to get somewhere. It looks like letting a question hang in the air without rushing toward an answer. It looks like noticing that tightness in your chest and just breathing with it, instead of fixing it. Stillness is a practice, a posture, a sacred pause where you say, I'm here, I'm enough. I release what I can't control and I trust what I can't yet see. In this space, you're not giving up. You're aligning. You're allowing the pieces to move, not because you forced them, but because you finally stopped getting in the way. It's a paradox. When you release, reality moves. When you soften, life responds. And maybe, just maybe, the most powerful move you'll ever make is choosing to be still. Letting go isn't about drifting. It's not about becoming passive or giving your life over to randomness. In fact, real surrender, the kind Thoth hinted at, the kind echoed by modern spiritual teachers like Gabby Bernstein, is perhaps the most grounded, intentional choice you can make. But here's where many get lost. They confuse silence with stagnation, stillness with paralysis. They ask, if I stop controlling everything, will I just fade into nothingness? Will I lose momentum, lose direction? The truth is, letting go doesn't mean losing the path. It means finally seeing it clearly without the fog of overthinking, without the noise of fear echoing in every step. There's a space you can enter, even in the middle of your workday, where you don't have to choose between doing and being. You can breathe with purpose. You can pause with presence. You can return, even for 30 seconds, to a vibration of trust. Gabby Bernstein teaches something called the energy of attraction meditation. It's not a complicated ritual. It's as simple as placing your hand on your heart, closing your eyes, and letting your breath be enough. In that moment, you're no longer chasing outcomes. You're reconnecting with the source. That's what this part of the journey is about, not shutting down your desires, but stepping into alignment with them. Not through force, but through felt clarity. Letting go, in this deeper sense, becomes a way of holding not tightly, but lovingly. It's the difference between clenching and cradling, between obsession and intention. You don't need a mountain retreat. You don't need an hour of silence. You just need a doorway back into presence scattered throughout your day like hidden keys. A deep breath while the coffee brews. A silent mantra in the car. A soft return to center when the world pulls you in 10 directions at once. These are not escapes. They are recalibrations. Moments when your vibration realigns, not because you forced anything, but because you remembered. Remembered that you are not lost. That your direction was never found in the noise, but in the quiet confidence that rises when you choose trust over tension. So if you've been afraid to let go, worried it would make you aimless, directionless, weak, let this be your permission. You can let go and still move forward. You can release and still remain rooted. And in doing so, you may find you move not with effort, but with ease. Not because you're pushing, but because life is finally flowing through you. There's a place you can go that isn't marked on any map. It has no walls, no roof, no candles, no chance. And yet, it holds more power than any vision board, mantra, or ceremony you've ever tried. It's not outside you. It's inside. It's the room of silence. Not the silence of absence, but of fullness. The kind of silence that doesn't feel empty, but sacred. Where noise fades and you begin to hear the most important voice of all your own. This room doesn't announce itself. It appears the moment you stop reaching and start returning. The moment you stop trying to fix, explain, convince, manifest, and simply be. Right there, beneath the layers of doing, beneath the fatigue of always holding space for others, the room is waiting. And when you enter it, reality shifts. The ancient mystics knew this space well. Monks across traditions from the Egyptian deserts to the Zen monasteries of Japan spoke of a silence that wasn't about muting the world, but tuning into the divine. A silence where answers weren't shouted, but revealed. Where the act of not acting became the most profound alignment of all. Because in that still space, your vibration isn't being tugged by doubt, fear, or effort. It begins to settle into something clearer, purer, stronger. And like water in a glass, once still, it reflects the truth. This is where the phrase, "everything falls into place," comes alive not as a motivational quote, but as an experience. In this room, you are no longer arranging reality from the outside. You are becoming the magnet, the field, the frequency that allows things to arrange themselves around you. For those who have been healing others, giving endlessly, burning out without a place to rest, this room becomes a sanctuary. For those who are waking up, but still feel lost between awakening and action, it becomes a compass. For those who have been told to trust the universe, but don't know what that feels like, it becomes the embodiment of faith. Because to trust the invisible intelligence, as Thoth urged, is not to blindly obey it, is to join it. To hum at its frequency. To let your small self dissolve into the knowing that something wiser, older, and more loving is already moving through you. In this room, you remember, you are not separate from the divine choreography. You are it. You're not waiting for your life to align. You are the alignment. You don't have to build the room. You don't even have to believe in it. You just have to enter. And everything begins to move. There's a moment, small, invisible, yet deeply familiar, when something inside you whispers, "Maybe I should check again." Check if it's working, if it's coming, if it's manifesting. And just like that, your vibration shifts. That whisper seems harmless, but it holds a hidden cost. When you interfere with the process, when you insert doubt, when you tinker, when you try to help the universe along, you don't speed things up. You delay them. Not because you're undeserving, but because you're not holding the frequency that allows things to unfold. Thoth's wisdom wasn't dramatic, it was surgical. He pointed to what few want to hear. The more you try to control, the more you step out of alignment with the timeline that was already moving for you. It's like baking. The cake is rising beautifully, filling your kitchen with warmth. But your impatience says, just a peek. You open the oven door, just for a second, and the cake collapses. Not because it wasn't meant to rise, but because you didn't trust it to do so without your constant checking. This is what most people miss about doing nothing. It doesn't mean ignoring your dreams. It means learning to stay in the frequency of already having them without needing constant confirmation from the outside world. Because energy responds to certainty, not performance, not panic, but that quiet, grounded knowing. It's already on its way. That's the hardest thing for the modern mind. We've been trained to equate action with worthiness, movement with progress. So we keep doing, hoping that our effort will prove something to others, to ourselves, to the universe. But interference sends a very different signal. It says, I don't believe. It says, I'm scared it won't happen unless I force it. And the universe listens. That's why the cost is so subtle and so steep. You may be one breath away from alignment, and instead you hit refresh, push, ask again, and fall out of the field you were just about to receive from. So what do you do instead? You hold, not in fear, not in tension, but in confidence. You remember the cake in the oven, the life already rising, and you trust the process enough to not slam the door open. You speak, move, breathe, as if what you want is already forming because it is. You don't need to perform your belief. You only need to rest in it. And the more you can stay in that space, the invisible center of knowing, the faster the unseen forces around you can move. Not because you made it happen, but because you finally stopped interrupting what was already on its way. There's a quiet difference between someone who has what they desire and someone still chasing it. You can't always see it in their words, but you can feel it in their presence. The one who has moves slower, breathes deeper. Their eyes scan the room without urgency. They don't grip the moment, they let it unfold. The one who does, they lean forward, they over-explain. Their energy buzzes with a question they never say out loud. Is it working yet? This is the invisible divide between manifestation as a performance and manifestation as embodiment. You've probably heard the advice, act as if you already have it. But let's go deeper. This isn't about faking it. It's about aligning your frequency to the version of you that already lives in the reality you want. Not pretending, becoming, because manifestation isn't a trick, it's resonance. The universe responds to the state you occupy, not the one you beg for. It doesn't measure the eloquence of your desire. It reads the vibration of your being. Let's say you want peace. If you vibrate anxiety, no matter how often you say, I choose peace, your life mirrors the anxiety. You want love. But if you move through the world with unworthiness buried beneath every compliment, the universe answers the deeper signal, not the surface wish. Now here's where it gets liberating. You don't have to wait for proof before you shift your state. That's the great misunderstanding. People think once the thing shows up, then they'll feel abundant, relaxed, certain. But the universe doesn't work like a vending machine. It works like a tuning fork. You become the frequency first. The rest comes after. So what if you started today, this hour, by simply softening into the version of you who already has it? How would they sit? How would they breathe? How would they greet strangers? Speak to themselves? Move through decisions? This isn't delusion. It's alignment. Because the more often you choose that version of you moment by moment, the more you dissolve the resistance that says you don't deserve it. You quiet the fear that asks for constant confirmation. You stop negotiating your worth with external outcomes. You begin to feel like the person who doesn't need to try. Because at some point, they stopped reaching for the dream and realized they are the dream. This is not about lying to yourself. It's about returning to yourself, to the part of you that always knew you were enough, to the truth that your energy speaks louder than your words. And once you settle into that vibration, the world starts to whisper back, "We've been waiting for you." If you've ever felt stuck, like life was circling the same loop, no matter how hard you tried, it may not be because you weren't doing enough. It might be because you hadn't stopped deep enough, stopped the striving, the doubting, the small, almost invisible ways you've been interfering with the magic that's already in motion. There comes a time when the most powerful thing you can do is nothing, not out of laziness, not out of fear, but because you trust the current that's already carrying you forward. So if right now your life feels uncertain, if you've been asking the universe for a sign, this might be it. Let it work. Don't interrupt the rearrangement. Let the unseen intelligence that breathes stars and seasons and synchronicities do what it's always been doing, aligning the pieces in a way your mind could never orchestrate. You don't have to monitor the progress. You don't have to wrestle your destiny into form. You only need to rest in the knowing that it's already working. And when you choose that still vibration not for the outcome, but for your own peace, you'll realize you weren't waiting for the universe to respond. The universe was waiting for you to stop interrupting long enough to receive. Welcome home.